Hey, first as usual. Welcome in. Just got out of surgery. Wow. Good afternoon. Welcome in, guys. Getting started here shortly, letting the room fill up. Hope you guys have had a good week. Happy Cinco de Mayo for all the Latino homies. Hope you had a great celebration. Fuck. When bunker busting goes wrong. Well, well, well. What's going on, Big Red? What's going on, guys? What's going on, Marin? Everybody in here. Did we all vote harder? Well, we're going to vote harder very soon. A bunch of elections are coming up. Bo, love the content. Thanks, brother. Been watching you for a few months. Wow. Thank you. What's going on, you guys? We are so cooked. Every single remote job is a scam. It makes sense with AI making remote work so common or so available. The scammers are out in droves trying to get people to work remote jobs that don't exist because, getting your information is nice. So be careful. Apparently they're using my book. What's going on, Shirley? They're using my face, for selling Bitcoin scams. I don't know what kind of Bitcoin scam it was. Somebody posted it in the community. So I'm not just selling hemorrhoid face cream. I'm now selling Bitcoin scams too. Accounts I have no connection, no ties to whatsoever, to just use your likeness. Be very careful putting your face online today. Even if you have a social media account that's just you sharing your life and keeping it real simple, it's been commodified completely. Like all of those pictures you have of your family, of everybody you love, can be used to sell products, and most likely has been scraped from the internet by some bot. And you will be placed in some ad somewhere and you have no idea. So, yeah. Elections today in the UK for local politicians. Yep. Good luck. Good luck. Hope you guys do well. Yep. Reform is the milquetoast center right, and then Restore is the proper nationalist UK party. So I hope you guys overwhelmingly vote in support of Restore, and that signals to the establishment that liberal democracy is over with. Yeah, Reform is the boomer party. Yep. It is. They're leftist, actually. Reform is leftist light. There's no real right wing in any politics. You guys have to understand this. Trump is a Democrat. He's not an actual Republican. Trump is talking about amnesty and shit. Like the Republicans that we have today are softer than 90s Democrats. They want to give DACA recipients and farm workers amnesty. They want to, they've already stopped mass deportation. That's not happening. It got us into wars. It's all a mess. The neocons, you can give them whatever name you want. There is no nationalist party in the United States or nationalist wing inside the United States. It's just literally loony left Dems, and they're split off too. You have some center Dems that are not popular at all, like the guy in Pennsylvania. What's his name? He was the one that had he had like a heart attack or something. He had a stroke, actually. What's his name? He's bald. He's being completely eviscerated by the entire Democratic establishment, by the Democrats, excuse me. Fetterman, correct. Thank you. So Fetterman is widely hated now. There's polls showing that he's the most unpopular Democrat since the history of tracking any of that stuff for any politician whatsoever. He's had an incredible negative point swing of, like epic proportions. Never happened before. They voted him in and they thought he was going to be Team Blue all the way. Dude has a stroke, came back. I don't even call it based. He just came back sort of common sense, kind of like he's thinking for himself. And he feels his decisions are right. And they happen to align with some Republicans. So what ends up happening is the Democrats can't stand anybody not towing the line. So they've essentially eviscerated him. And the next time he runs, he's not going to be able to defend his seat. They've outcasted him from the Democrat platform. He is seen as an outsider and a traitor to the Democratic Party, because he's siding with the, quote, fascists. There's no fascists. There is no even right. There's no real right in the current government today. There is amongst the population. We do have a populist right-wing movement, or at least mentality of the people. But in politics today, when a right-wing populist gets into power, quote, Trump, at least that's what the platform was that he was running on, quickly you find out that the special interest and the money and the donor class actually makes him switch up completely. and it's more of the same status quo. That's it. So Trump is just doing the bidding of the people that put him in power. So Jewish oligarchs, Miriam Adelson, all the moneyed interests from big business and corporations and all of that stuff, and the old power that still is well connected within government, the deep state and the whatever else you want to call it. But that's who really coalesces into, these are the people that really drive government. Trump is just a puppet. He's a face. He doesn't really have actual power to make changes, because even if he did something that the populist right-wing sort of undercurrent of society wants, and it's not even an undercurrent, it's technically a wave. We saw him get a mandate when he got voted in. Well, that wave of people is not enough to break down the walls of the establishment, of the moneyed interest, of the oligarchs, of the rich, the wealthy, the elite. You have to think of it like this. You still didn't get all the Epstein files released, which he directly ran on. That's just one of many things he directly ran on that you didn't get shit. No one went to jail. You guys, they were actively diddling kids. There's not a single person that got indicted to go to jail. They had, according to Pam Bondi early on in her tenure as the AG, she said she had thousands of disgusting videos that involved children. Where did that go? That she had to turn over pages of documents and videos, boxes full of disgusting things that she had to go through every file and video carefully because she didn't want to release any of the information of the people that were being predated on, you could say. Isn't that crazy? Their kids being violated. They have it on video. The AG came out and said this. We don't have a single indictment. No arrests. Nothing happened. And then in the same time that this is all going on, or try to get swept under the rug, I read a story about a ex-special forces, or I think he's still special forces, one of the very men, the tip of the spear of the United States, patriots, one of the very men who was involved in the Maduro capture, got arrested and jailed because he made $400,000 on betting on Polymarket, something in regards to him having, he had mission access. He was privy to information that gave him an ability to trade in the market for some profit. This is the same guy involved in taking Maduro, risking his life for his country. He had some insider knowledge. He decides to make a piddly $400,000. They jail him. But someone inside the administration, whether directly in Trump or somebody privy to people directly within the defense department, in the CENTCOM meetings themselves, somebody within Trump's circle has leaked to somebody else the moment he tweets, what he's going to tweet, whether he's going to announce a ceasefire or he's going to bomb a country to the Stone Age. Somebody had access to each and every one of those momentous occasions to go into Polymarket and trade to the tune of like $800 million in profit. Not one SEC investigation into that. Nothing. On one end, politicians or people close to them, or people close to people in positions of power in the know, are making hand over fist generational wealth, hundreds of millions of dollars, trade after trade after trade, perfectly timed. Yet somehow the tip of the spear, a soldier, special forces, $1 million man, they cost $1 million+ to train each and every one of these absolute specimens of men. And he makes a piddly $400,000 for himself. For himself. He didn't leak any operational information. He didn't put anybody at risk. Nothing at all. He just made a little extra on the side. Now we can talk about, the morality there, decorum, and should you be doing that? And that's fine. First, we're going to have to get back to the hundreds of millions of people that aren't getting arrested. So that guy is not allowed. He gets arrested. He gets indicted, and he's going to get prison, and his career may be derailed. We spent millions of dollars training that man with a special set of expertise who can further America's interest overseas. and he's the one that's going to jail. But a politician can actively insider trade in Congress. They don't get arrested. They're allowed to do it. Anybody with information close to a politician who may be in the closed door meetings and whatever else, privy to all the information from the war or anything else whatsoever, close to Trump, or somebody literally in Trump's administration, they get to make hundreds of millions of dollars while you're paying more at the gas station, while your groceries are going up in price. They're tweeting the war is over, or the war is just getting started, or this, that, and it doesn't matter. They get to tweet whatever they want, wash money in the market, make millions in the market, and nobody can hold them accountable. Rules for thee, not for me. Practically, it's like a king. And the new modern day serfs is what we are, because the rules don't apply to kings. They're kings. They have immunity, right? It seems like our politicians feel like they're immune to the law. And so they're acting in a manner that is essentially showing all of us that they are indeed and in fact immune to the law. But it doesn't even extend to just the politicians, because if you're rich, if you're wealthy, if you're a billionaire, it seems like the law doesn't apply to you either. See, the law is something for the poors, for the average, for everyone else. When you're wealthy, it seems like there is no such thing as a law. It's just how much are you willing to pay, whether in fees, whether in fines, or whether in buying up a judge or a politician or whatever else you need. Grease the hands that get your permits and your contracts and everything else that you need. Isn't that weird? The so-called democracy, this bastion of freedom and equality, is anything but free. It's very tyrannical. And no, nothing about the system we're living in today is equal, because those at the top play by different rules. How is that equal? So the game is rigged and everybody can feel it. The game for a wealthy person like Trump's son, Mr. 6'20" million bone spurs, never going to go to war, but your kid will. Barron has access and he's privy to an insane amount of information. Now, I can't make the claim this is him. Of course, it's insane. Can't make the claim that he's the one trading on that poly market. But we do know him and Trump's other sons do have crypto. They do know the general direction their father's going in with, like that crypto. What was he trying to do? The crypto treasury setup he tried to have. He was going to make a big piggy bank of Bitcoin and all these other cryptos that Trump promised. He was very crypto friendly when he was first running his campaign. You guys remember that? All the crypto bros were super happy. Bitcoin and Ether were at new all-time highs after Trump won the presidency. Everybody thought it was going to be a golden age for crypto, that the United States was going to buy Bitcoin and make its own little Bitcoin treasury. Yeah, Bitcoin reserve, if you will. Yes. What happened to that crypto reserve? Absolutely nothing happened. But during the run-up, and while Trump was actively glazing up the market and getting everybody in a tizzy to invest, guess which one of his sons was making millions of dollars, accumulating millions of dollars worth of Ethereum and Bitcoin? Is that moral? Is that just? Is that even legal? But a soldier will go to jail who's far more useful to the United States. Over 400,000. It makes sense, right? The kind of world that we live in.
Perfect.
At JRob Detailing Ireland donated €5. Always enjoying the content. Long time background listener. Love listening to the vids when I'm detailing. JRob.
Hey. Thanks, brother. Glad you love the videos. Appreciate all of you for tuning in. Anyways, we'll get into the main topic, boys. Appreciate everybody that's tuning in, everybody that's donating, everybody that's subbed. If you haven't already, head over to Kick. Let me put up these. Appreciate everybody that's been getting the merch, by the way, and the hats here. They've been doing very well, so thank you guys so much. Hope you're enjoying the merch, and you're having a great time setting people off potentially. It makes for interesting conversation depending on what side of town you're in and what people you're surrounded by. So Let me put this and pin this in chat. All right. And then if you are on YouTube later on, I'm running a stable build of my app right now, so we're good to go. Later on, after our topic and maybe one reaction video, we're going to do a couple more on Kick. See how we're feeling if we do a couple more. We might end up getting in a long one, so I'm not sure. We'll see how it goes. Do I got the energy? Anyways, hope you guys have been having a really blessed week, man. Hope you're getting all your, things done that you need for the day. Crossing T's, dotting I's, all that stuff. Had a good start of my day. Went to gym early. I don't usually do that. Was done by like 10. Ate a nice meal, super clean. Just rice, chicken. And had a coffee, and then we're just prepping right now for the show. So welcome in, you guys. Thank you for tuning in for the third or fourth time. I can confirm we are making massive progress on the app. It will be released soon. I got to buy a crappy MacBook, a Chromebook, because I have to test the build on Windows. And for any of you interested in streaming, I would recommend, please download the app and let me know how it works for you. So super cool proof of concept. We've been talking about this AI encoding stuff for a while. You've seen me build it in the background and showing it off here and there. And I'm on the tail end of everything. It'll be released very soon. And then that's the proof. Here it is. I am a knuckle dragger. I don't code anything whatsoever. The fact that I built something like this and it's functional and it serves a purpose and it saves people money is actually insane. So you could split your hard drive. Yeah, I thought about a virtual machine, but I need to see how it functions on, a physical computer. I don't want to just reproduce a virtual machine. I want to see what it runs like on an actual shitty Chromebook, because I have a very strong Mac. I have a M4 Max and it's fully loaded. So I just want to see how my app runs. Is it a hog on memory or something like that? Does it slow down on a Chromebook? Can it run smoothly? And see how it works. And yeah, we should be ready to rock. Did a bunch of the hard stuff already. Got Stripe payments set up, the database stuff, encrypted everything. I'm not trying to produce slop that gets hacked and everybody's info, like the T app. We were talking about that in the private community, hardening your software suite with all, industry best practices. I've learned so much, guys, in the past couple of months, literally in the last 30 days alone, just with this. I have the $200 Claude plan. I'm maxed out. I can't code anymore until tomorrow. It resets. So I'm literally, it's full red. So I could even show it to you guys later. I have one more prompt left. I'm at 98% and it resets this Friday. So interesting nonetheless. Somebody hacks the app using a Roku stick. Yeah. No, I made it. Hey, look, the app is going to be interesting. It'll be serving a specific market. The market's not big. It's not like streamers are everywhere. But it has its uses, and there will be certain people that would like to. It's free to use also. And some of the more advanced features, of course, you pay for. I'm only going to charge, I already thought about it. It's $10 a month, and this unifies everything you need. Everybody else is charging literally an arm and a leg. Let me make sure if I have what Streamlabs is charging exactly for theirs. I forgot exactly what they were charging. Let me tell you. Just for the unified chat functionality. It was something insane. I want to say it was like $65 or $40 or something like that. Upgrade to Ultra. That's right. Streamlabs Ultra is... Yeah, there it is. I believe it's $53 a month. Billed at $645 annually. Oh shit, they raised their prices. If you wanted monthly, dude, they're charging $80 a month. Is that for the correct one? One-on-one streamer, dedicated contact, semi-annual, highest streamlines you intelligent stream. Okay, so it's either, I don't know which one it is. There's Ultra and Ultra Plus, but it's $30 a month or $79 a month. Mine is 10. So they won't tell me which one gives you unified chat. I believe it's $30, but regardless, dude, 10. And they don't support Rumble. My app works with Rumble. You can have the Rumble chat in here. So, you know, that was one of the things that I hated. I hated the fact that I would love to multi-stream, but I can't have all my chat in one because some of these, they hate Rumble because they're not supporters of censorship. And so there are people that stream on Rumble that the establishment wants gone. And so these apps are so woke, like Streamlabs and everybody else, they will not build in something that allows you to connect to Rumble so you can see people on Rumble chatting, you know, along with everybody else. I think that's bullshit. So I built something to fix that problem. This is it. I'm going to advertise through fellow streamers, send them a link with a discount code to get the word out. Yeah, eventually. That's the plan. I want to open it to everybody else. I'll do my onboarding video for you guys. I'll show you exactly how the app works, everything. And we have a little onboarding wizard I'm building today that literally holds your hand into putting in your own API keys and all that stuff, authenticating all your apps. Very simple. And that's it. Boom, done. I mean, YouTube's the only one you really have to do this with. The rest is very simple. The app does all the heavy lifting for you. And then you have something that's functional, and I'll keep testing it. Obviously, there might be some bugs that slip through, but the app itself is stable, doesn't crashes, and it does what it needs you. It does what you need it to do, excuse me. So it's super cool. Like I said, what's amazing about this is I am a knuckle dragger. I don't know the first thing about coding or computer language. What's cool is someone like me can make something this complex that took an entire team of people with expertise. How many years were they spending getting computer science degrees, software engineering, you know, architecting, coding, all that stuff? It's crazy that it's now that power is in my hands. You just have to have a little bit of intuition on how to use it. And this is what I'm trying to teach people. Once I release the app and people can see it, it's my proof of concept, and people who get into the private community, I can show you guys. I've already released tons of files in like how-tos for people that you just plug into your bot that helps you start the workflow that I started in whatever project you have. Yeah. So you literally just feed it into your whatever chat bot you're using, if you want to even just call it a chat bot, but whatever AI you're using, you just feed it these files, and then it reads everything and goes, okay, cool, I understand what we need to do. And then it continues going forward with you there, and it sets up your projects exactly how you need it. So have not tried running Claude Code on different models. Yeah. One second, let me see something. All right. Amazon delivery arrived. Okay, boys. So let's get into it. Topic of the day. What did I title this? I don't even remember what I titled this. I titled this Her Choice, His Obligation. So it's a topic we've covered before, but I never got really in depth into it. But I just wanted to make this essentially the premier topic of the live stream, you could say. Yeah. So it was titled, what does it say here? Her Choice, His Obligation. You know, and it's essentially talking about the reproductive asymmetry that feminism built into the state, or that the state enforces. I'm probably going to end up making that the title of the video when I chop it up for people. But the so-called reproductive rights, that whole conversation, well, it has been a conversation on and off in the country for what, 50 years now? And then started with what, Roe in 73, Dobbs in 2022, if I'm not mistaken. And then every election cycle in between, somebody brings it up all the time. So you have 50 years of nonstop fighting over, what the phrase actually means. And the entire time, that phrase has been about the rights of one half of the population. Let me put my chat up here. Which is what a man painfully knows today, essentially. So the other half, quote, us men, don't appear in this at all whatsoever. And red pill's probably one of the main communities, men's rights, MRAs, whoever else. They finally put it in the limelight that the conversation was rigged from the start. So you had safe haven laws in all 50 states. And then on the financial side, roughly $30 billion a year is flowing through the federal child support system. We know that. The enforcement runs on mechanisms that go back almost 200 years. Debtor prisons were abolished in this country in 1833 with one specific exemption that has run continuously until the present day today. And the exemption is child support and the modern enforcement uses that the state has. Every little lever, right? License suspension, for example, wage garnishment, passport holds, imputed income, meaning a court can assign you a hypothetical paycheck and then they'll bill you against the income that you don't actually earn. And eventually civil contempt court for the unpaid arrears, which is jail time for owing money to a private party. So every single one of these mechanisms applies to one specific gender, and roughly 85% of the $30 billion in annual payments comes out of that gender alone. So the other gender has an entire menu of exits at every stage of the reproductive timeline, plus a federal welfare backstop if, she keeps the kid that she can't afford. And we don't call her a deadbeat mother. We just bail her out with taxes. So there's a pattern that's running through every single mechanism that I listed, and there's probably some that I'm missing too, by the way. I don't know what else they have, but those are the ones that pop into your head right away. But once you see it, you can't unsee any of this fucking stuff. So the pattern is asymmetry, okay? It's an imbalance, one-way contract. It's a legal infrastructure with all the exit ramps engineered into one side of the highway and on concrete barriers on the other side. And the ideology that built this asymmetric, what could you call it, infrastructure over the last 60 years, it's the same ideology that will tell you with a straight face that women are the oppressed half. And we'll come back to that ideology. Hold the thought for now. So the reproductive contract is just a headline case. Okay, the whole system runs the same way once you start looking. Higher education, 60% women now. The response, think about this, from every cultural institution is panic about why men aren't applying. Meanwhile, every piece of educational infrastructure for the last 40 years got rebuilt to optimize for female learning patterns instead. And the male learning patterns, you got medicated. They put your ass on Ritalin or ADD or whatever other medication there was for that. And then there's the workforce hiring, DEI offices that explicitly index against the male candidate. While the wage gap conversation pretends that men are still in control of the labor market that they're being filtered out of. It's absolutely insane. Family court, same shit. Maternal custody at nearly 80%. That's the default, essentially. How about marriage? Well, roughly 70 to 80% female initiated, depending on what numbers you're using. We like to quote the 80%. Okay, almost always with no fault legal cover. And the cultural narrative calls hers and her side of it empowerment. Now reverse this stuff, you guys. Imagine for a second, right? Same statistical patterns from him will get called abandonment. Same event, two completely different cultural framings. Okay, and the same pattern shows up in every other cultural domain that you can name. Just pick one, for example. The framing slips the moment a man is the subject, right? Pattern after pattern after pattern. Every cultural lever, every institutional lever, every legal lever, all calibrated to lift one gender and to extract from the other. Reproductive rights are just the loudest version of the same fucking song. Okay? Let me count the exit ramps for the female side of the reproductive equation. So, contraception is available. Both sides have it. That's parity. Fine. Moving on. Okay? We're equal there. After she gets pregnant, she has abortion. Available in roughly 30 states, post-Dobbs, restricted in others, okay? The option exists in most of the country, and the political infrastructure to expand access is fully active and well-funded by, foundations that have been pouring money into one side of the issue for the last 50 years without a comparable cent for the other. So she has the legal right to terminate the pregnancy without the father's consent, without his knowledge, without notifying him at any stage. He has no analog, zero. If she terminates the pregnancy that he wanted to carry to term, he has no recourse. The law treats his preference that pregnancy, or I should say about pregnancy, as legally meaningless. So keep that in mind for later when we talk about the financial side of that, because the same legal system, or I should say, the same legal system that says his preferences don't count when she wants to terminate is the same legal system that says his preferences don't count when she wants to keep it and then bill him for 18 plus years. So at birth, you have safe haven laws in every state in the country. What does that mean? Okay. Most guys don't even know about this stuff. Safe haven law. What is that? Well, you can walk into any fire station, any hospital, in some states, any police precinct, and you can hand over the infant. You can give no name, answer no questions, walk away with zero legal or financial follow-up forever. The law specifically protects her anonymity in the surrender. Trash can babies, essentially. The law specifically waives any future claim against her by the child or the state for support. That's insane. Imagine that privilege. So after the baby is born, you have adoption. If the father, let's say, hasn't legally established paternity at the moment that she places the child, in most states, she can place the child for adoption on her own. There are these, what do they call them? Father registries in some states where a man can sign up to be notified, but the catch is that they require him to register before he even knows there's a pregnancy in some cases, which is just structurally absurd when you think about it. So the practical default is that she controls the adoption decision unilaterally, and the legal system itself is comfortable with that arrangement because the legal system was built by people who treated male reproductive interest as something between a nuisance and, non-existing category. Isn't that crazy? Okay, and then we'll go with the financial backstop. If she keeps the child that she can't afford, to support that child, the federal welfare infrastructure will step in for her. She gets what? Food stamps, Medicaid, cash assistance, the whole safety net. And there's no jail time at all for a mother who can't pay her share of child rearing costs. There's a check from the government instead. So we incentivize single motherhood. And it's funded by taxpayers, disproportionately funded by male taxpayers because, let's be honest, of the income distribution. So when she chooses to keep a child that she can't afford, the bill goes to the state. When he can't pay child support or a child support order that was assigned to him without his consent, the bill goes to his liberty. Same financial inability, two completely different consequences. That is the structure of our system. That's how the system handles the same circumstance based on which gender is holding it. So now let me count the exit ramps on the male side. Condom. That's the entire fucking menu. Rubber. Over. You have nothing else. After she gets pregnant, literally nothing. You cannot terminate the pregnancy. You legally cannot compel her to keep it or end it. A man cannot legally extract himself from the financial obligation that follows if she chooses to keep the child. Now run the equality tests that the law claims to be running. if equality is the same principle, right? If equality runs symmetric, well, then explain all of this. She gets unilateral authority over the pregnancy outcome. Equality means he gets unilateral authority too. He should be legally entitled to compel her to carry the pregnancy. He should be legally entitled to compel termination, for example. It's the same logic that she's operating under. We're talking about equality. This is what feminism wants. Okay? She gets to opt out at every stage of the reproductive timeline through safe haven and abortion with no recourse later. Well, equality means that he gets to opt out at every stage too. Financial abortion, walk away clean, match the fucking menu that exists that she already has. Right now, she has both unilateral authority and opt out. You have neither. That's not equality. That's a one-way contract and is dressed up as equality. The categories are empty by design, by the way, and this is not an accident. It's by the deliberate choice of every legislature in every state that was advised by every feminist legal scholar who consulted on the family court reforms for the last 50 years. And okay, moving on. At birth, you have nothing. You cannot surrender the infant at a fire station. You cannot place the child for adoption on your own. If he wasn't married to the mother, he may not even appear on the birth certificate without her cooperation. The choose out lever doesn't exist for him. The law specifically built doors for her to walk away clean and the walls for him to keep walking into. Do you see how the system works? The architects of that legal asymmetry call themselves a movement for equality. This is feminism. Okay? And on the financial side, if the court assigns him a child support obligation and he can't pay, the entire enforcement chain we just covered drops on you like a fucking hammer. You get up to and including jail time for civil consent or contempt, that last one, jail time specifically for owing money to a private party, jail time for the man that's trying to pay to make sure the child gets what he wants. So we're going to jail the source of income that is trying and maybe failing, didn't pay all of it, still owes something, could be thrown in jail, and this is for the betterment of the child. So they tell us. So they say. Okay, because, the government totally doesn't make money off of the prisons and the prisoners, and the court system doesn't make money off of the cases that they're currently running in this very system. Totally not, right? So that's the debtor prison carve out from earlier that we talked about. Child support. It's the one debt in the states that will still jail you. That's insane. So you go to jail. She doesn't. Same biological event. Two completely different relationships to the legal system, right? That's equality. And this is the part that almost nobody in the mainstream discourse will discuss, period, because it's brutally indefensible the moment that it gets named. There are documented cases where men have been ordered to pay retroactive child support for children they didn't even know existed. And we covered those plenty earlier on this channel. Imagine spending life in jail, you guys, because one day some woman that you slept with appears years later and now has you on the hook for child support. Isn't that crazy? With a child support claim and a paternity test and a court that recognizes the claim that woman has, with back support for all the years you didn't pay, going all the way back to the day that kid was born. Can you imagine that? Statute of limitations vary state by state too, by the way. Some states allow the claim to run effectively without limit. So she could wake up on birthday number 18 and take your ass to court. And the long dick of the law is for it. So the man is assigned what? The obligation for years that he didn't know about, plus the back pay he already owes, plus the going forward bill. You had no input, on the conception. A man like that had no input on the decision to keep the kid. Think about that. He had no input on any of these. No input on the decision to conceal, right? The system basically arrives at his door with a bill for years of a relationship that it never existed with the child you didn't even know existed. If you go back and check the case law in your own state on like retroactive child support claims, you'll find this isn't a hypothetical. It's a documented mechanism that the legal system tolerates because the gender is being billed with this inequality while telling us it's all fully equal. The system is comfortable making you a second-class citizen. Okay, it's comfortable extracting from you. Now, if you reverse the genders in that same scenario, the legal system will call it unconscionable. Unconscionable. Excuse me. Unconscientious. We could say that. Apply it to the man and the legal system calls it just fucking Tuesday, dude. It's your ass. And the long dick of the law is unzipping itself to get you for 18 years. 18 years. 18 years for a kid that isn't even his, potentially. Your name just got placed on the birth certificate. There are many men that have also been paying child support for kids that aren't theirs. Is there a legal mechanism for you to get her for paternity fraud that is very enforceable? No, I don't think so. I haven't heard. Name me a case where a man finds out that he paid for 2, 3 kids, whatever, found out they weren't his. Does she owe him all of that money plus the time invested, plus the, mental distress that he went? There's nothing. You can't sue to get your money back. I have seen plenty, and I mean plenty of cases of men waking up one day, their kids are 20 plus years old, and they find out because they get sick and all of a sudden they don't match their children. So their children can be donors to something that they need. Can you imagine being sick on your deathbed, needing something donated from your children, and they're not a match because they're not yours? And you wake up and find out the day you're sick in the hospital that all your kids were never yours. What is the legal recourse there? I'm just asking. Interesting. So, but when you read a little bit deeper on this stuff, there has been one serious legal attempt to challenge this asymmetry structure. Is in 2006, a guy in Michigan, his name was like Matt Dubai. He sued the state arguing for equal protection clause because it meant that if women had a financial abortion right at the legal level, men should have an analog. And he called it financial abortion. The press called it Roe v. Wade for men. And the case did get some national coverage, but the feminist establishment lined up to oppose it, before the briefs were even filed, because the entire structure of female reproductive privilege depends on the male side staying obligated. So one dude did try to fight it, and it didn't really go too far, and not many men supported him. Actually, a lot of men were calling him a loser. A lot of men were saying, like, just step up and be a real man. It's men holding other men back. So now an organization called Now publicly came out against him. The president of Now went on CNN to call the Dubai man essentially a dodger. He's trying to dodge responsibility for his child, they said. The feminist establishment lined up in the press against them. Obviously, they called them all sorts of shit. So think about that for a second. The movement that calls itself the Equality Movement, organized to defeat a man arguing for equal treatment under the Equal Protection Clause. The Sixth Court Circuit ruled against them in 2007, and the court's reasoning was essentially that the obligations are different because biology is different, period. That's what they argued. So the implication of that ruling is that the law has officially decided men have no reproductive autonomy after conception. Think about that. The door got tested, the door got ruled on, and the door is now closed. The Dubai case is the official seal on the asymmetric structure that I'm describing today. Land of the free. Yeah, cucked in perpetuity, essentially. And the reasoning in Dubai is worth understanding because it's how every state's family court works on this essential question. The argument was that biological asymmetry justifies legal asymmetry, you could say. So the fact that pregnancy happens in her body and not his, it means that the law treats the decision points differently. Fine. As a logical position, until you notice that, or what it does to the financial side. So the court used biology to justify giving her, I would say, the only voice in the choice. Then the court used the same biology to justify dropping the entire financial obligation onto him. The biology argument runs in both directions when it benefits her, and in only one direction when it would benefit him. So Dubai locked in that rule that biology only counts when it benefits her. That's the legal foundation that every state's family court is operating in right now. And it is the doctrinal monument to the principle that male reproductive interests do not legally exist. And the response from every cultural authority about all this stuff, when this asymmetry gets named in public, the line is all the same. Keep it in your pants. That's the line. That's the entire institutional response to the entire male half of the reproductive equation. Keep it in your pants. As if biology cared about your discipline. As if a condom that fails in February is morally failing in November. As if the 18-year financial obligation that hits a working guy because, of one night 6 months ago is a consequence proportional to anything resembling moral responsibility. Have you ever heard a single mainstream commentator ask whether maybe that moral responsibility framing should attach to both halves of the reproductive equation? You guys ever heard that? When she gets pregnant and chooses abortion, no commentator asks whether she should have kept it in her pants. When she gets pregnant and chooses to keep the child without consulting him, no commentator is asking whether she should have considered his preferences. When she chooses to put the child up for adoption against his desire to raise it, no commentator is asking whether she should have honored his role. Zero, not a fucking word. The personal responsibility framing only ever lands on the male half of the equation because the cultural infrastructure has been calibrated for 50 years to treat female reproductive decisions as autonomous expressions of bodily sovereignty. My body, my choice. And male reproductive consequences as just like desserts of unrestrained masculinity. You fucking creep. Keep it in your pants. Wow, you're so gross. You can't stop thinking about sex. Oh my God, it's all you want. That's what we're relegated to. Keep it in your pants is what you say to a fucking child. Okay. The legal mechanism that follows that advice is what you build for an indentured servant, a slave, a modern day serf. Shut up, go to work, pump a kid out by accident, and be liable for the rest of your life, whether she tells you about it or not. What are my legal recourses? You have none. You're a slave. What are you talking about? Legal recourse for a slave? Yeah. So the man who can't pay that obligation that he's been assigned occupies a legal category older than the modern debtor, actually. He's the closest thing that the modern American legal system still produces equivalent to indentured servitude. You owe a debt that's assigned by a court based on income that the court can imagine he should be earning. The debt is payable to a private party, and then the debt is enforced by jail time if he doesn't pay it. Strip the language of family court off of that structure and look at the bare bones underneath. That's the structure of indentured servitude with a custody decree on top. Calculated, you guys, engineered, run with like a precision of a system that knows exactly what the fuck it's doing, built by an ideology that calls itself a movement for equality. And here's the deeper move that nobody in mainstream conversation will speak out loud. The welfare state has spent 50 years explicitly funding the replacement of fathers. The AFDC and then TANF for short were built on a structural assumption that single mothers needed cash transfers from the state because the alternative was them being dependent on the men who fathered the children. What a fucking shocker that is. Keep it in your pants, sis. Okay, that structural assumption was sold to the public as compassion. What it was actually doing was severing the economic case for the marriage. Once the state guarantees the income, the man becomes optional. Once the man is optional, the family becomes optional. Once the family becomes optional, the children grow up without fathers. And the data on that outcome is the loudest data in social science. And it has been buried for 40 years. Father absence is the single largest predictor of bad outcomes for the kids. It drives poverty. It drives criminality. It drives every single metric that we measure for child well-being. And I mean every single metric. There's not one that isn't affected by not having a father. The political class, they know this. Every honest social scientist knows this. The data has been published since the 70s, and the cultural conversation has been engineered to bury it because the alternative would be admitting that 50 years of progressive family policy, every piece of which was sold as liberation, actually built generational pathology and called it freedom. The fatherless household is the engineered output of a system that wanted men to be optional. The state moved into the bedroom, and then they paid the wife to kick the husband out. State as substitute husband. Husband as billing department. Mission accomplished. Now look around you, people. Tell me with a straight face that the feminist establishment and the progressive policymakers who ran this program for 50 fucking years are confused about the outcome. Is it a shock that society looks the way it does today? That our streets look the way they do today? Is it? Now, picture a guy. He's 28 years old. Let's say he's working construction. He's making 50 grand a year. Let's say he met a woman at a bar, let's say 9 months ago. Casual relationship. He used a condom. The condom failed, right? She decides that she wants to keep the child. He says he isn't ready. He says he doesn't want to be a father, for example, right? He says he wasn't in a relationship with her. He says he was using protection. Happens all the time. Okay. The legal answer to all four of those statements is irrelevant. The court will assign him child support, that obligation based on the imputed income that the court thinks he could be making. If construction season slows down, for example, and his actual paycheck drops, the obligation doesn't adjust. The back pay starts to pile up. Okay. If he misses 3 months, he gets a license suspension, and now he can't drive to the job sites. If he misses 6 months, he gets a wage garnishment that takes 30% of every paycheck before he ever sees it. If he misses a year, he can be brought up on civil contempt and face jail time. He goes to jail for unpaid child support. The mother of the child, if she can't afford to feed the child, gets TANF checks funded by taxpayers like him. Same circumstance. Two completely different legal outcomes. That's what asymmetry actually looks like at the working class level in the specific bodies of the specific men who never get asked whether the contract they're inside of that they've agreed to was acceptable to them in the first place. Isn't that something? And then they ask us, why is nobody getting married today? Maybe you should play them this video. Now run the scene forward. What, another 7 years? The guy's 35 now. He's been paying every month everything that he could, pretty much. He also fell behind in the months where construction work dried out because of the season. The back pay he owes has piled up. He looks at his statement and he owes, say, $30,000 in back support on top of the going forward bill. He goes to a bankruptcy attorney to wipe out the debt, right? Can I do that? He's thinking, every man is. The attorney tells him child support debt can't be wiped out in bankruptcy. That's federal law. He cannot wipe the slate. The debt follows him through bankruptcy, through job loss, through disability, through homelessness, through every other circumstance that's supposed to trigger a debt reset in the American legal system. The reset doesn't apply to him. The reset is engineered specifically to exclude him. He can lose his house, his car, his health, all of it. And the one debt that survives is the debt assigned to him by a family court 18 years ago for a relationship that he was using protection in. That's not a glitch in the system. That's the fucking feature. That's the system doing exactly what it was designed to do by the feminist legal scholars and progressive legislators who designed the entire thing. Is this what we meant by reproductive rights? Is this the right we're protecting when we say her body, her choice? Whose right is being protected when the structure of the deal is her choice plus his obligation? Whose body is autonomous? Whose choice is honored? Whose freedom is preserved? Whose bondage is normalized? Whose pain triggers a national conversation? And whose pain gets treated as proof that he's complaining too much? Think about it. Tell me. Because that's the structure. She gets the body. She gets the choice. She gets the autonomy. She gets the safety net. And you get the obligation. You get the wage garnishment. You get the license suspension. You get the threat of jail. Same event. Same biological event. Two completely different relationships to the law. And nobody in mainstream media, in the mainstream culture in general, will call out the asymmetry by its actual name, because they would get accused of misogyny within 10 fucking minutes, because the entire ideological infrastructure of feminism depends on never letting the asymmetry be named. So they call me what? An extremist, a woman hater, a misogynist, a threat, must be suppressed, male supremacist. I've been put on a government list and named a top 3 male supremacist because calling out the double standards is somehow a threat to female power. And I may be threatening the system. Just remember that. Calling out her choice being your obligation, that's a threat to the system. So what privilege does a man have that a woman does not? You tell me, okay? That's the deal, right? That's the actual deal. The actual deal that nobody in the mainstream discourse will say out loud. You cannot defend this asymmetry the moment that you call it out for what it is. You guys know what we call this pattern when we see it in other contexts, right? When one half of a population has rights and the other half has obligations, when one half walks into a contract free and the other half walks in it bound. Think about that for a second. We have a word for that pattern. The word doesn't get applied here because the half being bound is the wrong half to name as bound. Okay? The acceptable half. The half whose oppression is politically invisible because nobody will name it as oppression in the first place. So, and anybody who tries gets shut down by the cultural enforcement machine, labeled, fired, whatever it takes, doesn't matter, ostracized from society, put on list. The word for the structure exists. The structure exists. The discussion does not. Because the discussion is forbidden by the same ideological apparatus. The same apparatus that will wheel out these toads, like that bald-headed dude that pushes his shitty books, that can't name male problems without shoring up female systemic superiority. Scott Galloway. You know who I'm talking about, and others like him. They come out there, they're trotted out when the mainstream conversation pulses towards men are not in the workforce. Men are not economically viable. Men need to stop having, what do they call it? Failure to launches. Peter Pan syndrome. We have tons of names for what men need to do. And conversation only happens But I'm not saying that we should stop the massive progression of women into the workforce and positions of power and leadership and, college and educate everything. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is our boys need help to become economically viable for whores. That's what we're saying. Never once did that guy or anybody like his ilk who go up there and trot out these bullshit ideas, half-baked, still supporting feminism, none of them ever say, what are women good for today? What makes a woman good for a man? What should a woman live up to standard-wise? Have you ever heard the conversation go in that direction? What makes a woman good? What makes a woman marriage material? What women should live up to in the eyes of men to be better women? Not once. Not once. So, and I name it freely, openly, because no one else does. Well, yeah, people on this side of the aisle, they do, but it's feminism. It is feminism. Name it. The topic gets dishonest if you don't name it. Feminism. This is the movement. The movement that is responsible for, you could say, the cultural decline of the West, starting with the destruction of the nuclear family and the removal of the man from the household. That's what it is. It's even protected on YouTube, by the way. I kid you not. Topics like this, not even too long ago, topics like this would get you absolutely banned off of YouTube or demonetized at the very least, because feminism is actually a protected class, believe it or not. Men are not, though. So this so-called equality movement, it started as a fight for what? The vote and the basic legal framework of equality. Okay. Defensible, necessary in some people's eyes. I disagree with that. But movements don't, declare victory, that stand down. So, okay. They optimize for continuous expansion because that's what every movement has to do. You can't just say, hey, we got what we wanted. We're going to stop here. It's, hey, how do we get more? How do we keep the momentum going? How do we take it all? By the 70s, the demands had moved from the legal equality, to outcome equality. By the 2000s, outcome preference plus structural blame on men for any gap that remained, essentially. So Title IX flipped male and female educational attainment. Custody outcomes flipped to overwhelmingly maternal default. Workforce earnings parity arrived in major cities decades before the whole inequality conversation even started happening. And every time a goal was reached, the response was more of the same policy that caused it. The movement does not stop when its stated goal is reached. The movement keeps going because the movement is not actually about the stated goal. It's about the continuous extraction of power and resource transfer from the male half of the population to the female half. And it's dressed up in language that has the male half being shamed into accepting for how many generations now? That's the playbook. Anybody who reads the academic literature of the last 40 fucking years can see it in plain text. It's in your face. And the political ideology that's riding shotgun with all of this is the progressive left, okay, which has spent the last 40 years insisting that men are the source of every societal pathology and women are the universal victims. So, and then it got further evolved recently in the last 10 years that it's white men. It's not just men. Minorities are good for the moment till white men are wiped off the map. It's just white men now. You see how the evolution never stops? So meanwhile, the actual data on every measurable metric runs on the opposite direction. Suicide, workplace deaths, life expectancy, I don't know, pick a fucking metric. The numbers point the other way. And progressive ideology requires that male suffering be reframed as male privilege because acknowledging male suffering would require acknowledging that the framework itself is upside down. So the suicide rates get buried. Check. The workplace death rate gets buried. Check. The reproductive contract asymmetry gets buried. Check. The data is too inconvenient for the narrative. So the data gets disappeared. And the men who try to surface the data, you get called incels, misogynist, threats, extremist, whatever else. The actual function of the labels is to prevent the conversation from ever reaching the data. Just like anti-Semitism is today. That's the hot one. You're anti-Semitic because you're asking questions about Israel. It's the same shit. And it fucking works because it's been working for 50 years. Because the men who would have been the ones to push back have been culturally conditioned to apologize for being men before they're even allowed to speak. And the family unit got destroyed in the process. That's not a metaphor. That is measurable in the data. Look around you today. The single motherhood rate is insane. The intact two-parent household, which was the default arrangement for, I don't know, most of human civilization, is now a minority arrangement in the United States. Marriage rates are at all-time lows. Divorce rates, 80% female initiated, depending on the study. Okay, some say 60, some 70, some 80. Doesn't matter. It's over half. And the kids are growing up without fathers. Those are the ones doing measurably, and I mean measurably worse on every social science metric we can measure, even fucking invent in your head. The progressive left spent 50 years celebrating every step of this collapse as liberation. Single mothers as heroes. Fatherless households as a different family structure, equally valid. Children raised without fathers as just fine. And the data does not support a single one of those claims. Not one. And the progressive left, they don't care. And they did not care. Back then, now, it doesn't matter. About the kids. They did not care. And they do not care about the children. The celebration was about completing the project of severing the family unit. That was the project. Destroy the family and you remove the buffer that stood between the state and the individual, the buffer that gave fathers a structural role, the buffer that limited how far the state could reach into the next generation. Do you see what's happening? Mission accomplished. And anybody who points this out gets called today Christian nationalist, tomorrow a tradcon, yesterday a fascist. Depends on the time of the year and what they want to smear you with. Every legal mechanism extracts from one gender. Every cultural narrative inverts the framing the moment a man is the subject. Every institutional response panics about female outcomes and shrugs at the male ones. Same input, opposite framing, every fucking time. Watch what happens when a woman makes more money than a man in the relationship. Think about it. She's a girl boss. He's threatened. Reverse that shit. He's privileged and she's exploited. Watch what happens when a woman walks away from her marriage. She's brave. He's abandoned. Reverse it. He's a deadbeat and she's a survivor. Watch what happens when a woman has had many sexual partners. She's expressing her sexuality. Reverse it. He's a player and it's gross. Grow up. Same fucking action. Two completely different cultural frames. Calibrated, engineered, run by a media class and an academic class that has spent 40 years teaching Jewish ideology to everybody, that this calibration is justice. And yes, of course, there are those women who got destroyed by family court. It's a one win out of a wall of losses for men. Mothers who've lost custody to, say, abusive fathers. Rarely it happens. Statistically, it has to. Mothers fighting their own version of the same legal infrastructure. Okay, that's what the other side would say. But what about these instances? The asymmetric system that I'm describing isn't perfect in either direction at the individual level. We understand that, okay? System is huge. It's complex. It's bound to fail somewhere here and there. It's just that the volume disparity is the point. Roughly 4 out of 5 custodial parents in this country are mothers. 4. Think about that. So for every one mother who lost custody to a deadbeat father, there are multiple fathers that lost custody to a system that defaulted to the mother without examining the actual relationship. So the kid goes to the deadbeat mother, the drug addict mother, and the father's good and stable. That happens far too often. So the exception doesn't change the rule. That's all I'm saying. The rule is asymmetric reproduction rights paired with asymmetric financial responsibility that is engineered into the legal infrastructure of every state in this country by a movement that calls itself liberation and a political class that calls itself progressive. Okay? Your grandfather, for example, had a different deal. Whatever you think about his marriage, his family, the world that he was operating in, the contract that he was working under was symmetrical in a way that the contract that you're working under is not. And it's very simple. He could choose to walk if the marriage failed. He could lose his shirt in the divorce, sure, but he could rebuild. What he couldn't be hit with was an 18-year wage garnishment from a 6-month relationship that he was using protection in. Title IX in 1972. No-fault divorce nationally between 1969 and 85. The federal child support enforcement regime built out in the late 70s and 80s. Think about it. So every piece of this asymmetric legal architecture is 50 years old or less. Every single mechanism that I described in this little monologue here on our live stream was built by a specific generation of activists, lawyers, and legislators acting on a specific ideology in a very specific window of time. That ideology has a name. The name was feminism. And the name still controls the cultural conversation that determines which of these mechanisms can even be discussed honestly. You live in a world that ideology built. And the people who built it told you that it was for the kids, right? Okay. Have you noticed that there's no parallel cultural figure of the deadbeat mom? Mothers who don't pay their, court-ordered child support, they exist. There's a lot of them. They are statistically real. You cannot say deadbeat mothers don't exist. They get roughly 10% of the cultural attention that fathers get for the same legal validation or violation, excuse me. So think about it. The phrase deadbeat dad has been a stock term in the American discourse for like 30 years now. The phrase deadbeat mom barely exists in mainstream conversation. It's the same behavior, same violation, 2 different cultural frames. Again, because the cultural infrastructure is calibrated to the legal one. So the legal system extracts and subsidizes her, extracts from him and subsidizes her. That cultural system shames him for failing to pay, and it excuses her for failing to pay. The 2 systems, they reinforce each other, you guys. The man who doesn't pay is a deadbeat. The woman who doesn't pay is just a struggling mother. It's the same person, the same financial situation. 2 completely different lenses at looking at said problem. This is information warfare being run on cultural conversation in real time by the progressive feminist apparatus that pulls basically the entire institutional class in. Mainstream media, academia, foundation money, the Democratic Party, period, everything. And by the way, the Democratic Party is the party that's paying for it. The terms that describe one half of the equation get full cultural amplification by the Democrat. The terms that would describe the other half don't exist. It's like fringe vocabulary for the mainstream. And platforms would demonize you and demonetize you and censor you for simply making videos on feminism or deadbeat mothers or women in general, because they're a protected class. Women are a protected class. Men are not. Okay? So YouTube, one of the mainstream platforms, they will absolutely demonetize you and potentially deplatform you and will tag your content on the video as hateful for using deadbeat mother or saying that feminism wasn't good for society. Just an example. There's no cultural critic on a major platform asking why the male half of reproduction has 0 exit ramps. There's no segment on cable news anywhere running asymmetry through a graphic for prime time. There's no senator from either party walking onto the Senate floor with some fucking chart that names this out loud for everybody. The right won't touch it because it implicates traditional family obligations that they want to defend, even if those obligations have been weaponized into something traditional fathers wouldn't recognize. The left won't touch it because it complicates the narrative of one-sided reproductive rights that they've been running for 50 years. Neither side has the political incentive to name the asymmetry. So it gets unnamed. And every man entering into this contract walks in without seeing the structure that he's about to become collateral for. And here's the part that has me genuinely worried about what's coming next, because the system I just described depends on the men continuing to show up for the contract that gives them 0 exit ramps. Show up to date, show up to marry, show up to absorb the legal infrastructure as the cost of being a man in the dating game. Listen to me on this part, seriously. The participation is collapsing in real time. Okay, the marriage rate is at an all-time low and cratering. Still, the market is fracturing in terms of dating. Young men are reporting what? Record high disengagement from long-term relationships. The 4B movement in Korea, out of what? South Korea? That's getting picked up by women here in the United States. The MGTOW conversation that was fringe internet thing, what, like 15 years ago, is the median temperature of the male 20-something in this country right now. The contract is being refused quietly, individually, and at scale when you count men in totality. And the same ideological apparatus that built the contract is now panicking because they cannot figure out how to get the men back without admitting what they built. How are you going to go up on a podium as a politician, right or left, and say the equality we've been going after has been unilaterally benefiting one side? Actually, you've been getting the short end of the stick and we're going to fix this, which means taking away benefits from women. Imagine saying that out loud, and giving them to men. Taking away female privilege and giving it to a man. Imagine the left saying this out loud. And imagine the tradcons on the right, the LARPers, saying that out loud. Because on the right, it gets no better. On the right, do you know what they say? Be a real man. Start a family. Get married. Have kids. In what economy, bro? With what woman, bro? With what future? With these laws? With this court system? And the birth rate, when you look at all of this in totality, is the refusal in real time. The U.S. fertility rate is now at, I think, something like 1.6. And falling, by the way. And South Korea is at lowest at like 0.7, you guys. 0.7. This is the lowest fertility rate in human history since we've been tracking that stuff. And the number isn't an outlier. Okay? It's a preview of what is going to happen to our society very quickly. We're walking off of a cliff. It's not a slow managed decline. So, hold on, let me boot this guy out of the chat real quick because he's just spamming shit. Bam. Banned. Anyways. And what's weird is that every country in the West, or every developed country, let's just say that because East Asia is dealing with the same shit, is on this same trajectory at different speeds. Why is that? Well, the women in those countries are exiting the reproductive contract at the same time that the men are. So different reasons. The women give whatever they want to say. whatever they think is going on in society, because when they're privileged, they have no idea that they're even privileged at all. Equality seems like, I read that quote sometime, when you're privileged, equality seems like, what was the word that they used? Oppression. So when the privileged class is forced to have the same standards as everybody else, it feels like oppression to them. This is how much of an advantage that they have. So, anyways, same path, same choice, actually. Both sides of the deal, both genders are looking at it and think that they're being offered something shit, and then they're quietly walking away. And the political class in every one of these countries is panicking because, yeah, the math looks like shit and no more piggies to get taxes from. You know, all the government funded programs for the, you know, that depends on the working age taxpayers. That depends on the population constantly being replenished, you could say. Think about that. If we don't produce enough human beings, then we won't have enough money for the welfare programs. Those are all funded by the working age population. The working age population is going down the toilet. The average age in Europe, I think it was something like 40s. And then the average age of Africa, if I'm not mistaken, I got to look that up again. I think the average age in Africa was 19. Maybe it was 19. I can't remember what the average. I didn't write that one in my notes. Fuck. So, and that's a sign of how healthy a society is in terms of reproductive rights, right? There's this guy that he came out with this, I think it was on Netflix, this documentary showing what causes population collapse. And he was tying it to something else. He was tying it to like catastrophic single event actions in a society. For example, the 2008-2009 financial crash was such an impact that permanently scarred how people perceived the future to be, how safe it was. And that leads into like a knockdown effect, almost like, how could you say? I forgot the word for that. Dominoes. There we go. It's like a knockdown effect of dominoes where each person who would have been raising kids post 2008, 2009 has the living memory, the scar of what happened in 08, 09, and that makes them put off child rearing. And what happens is like you put off child rearing so long, eventually that when you think about wanting to have kids, you don't, or you can't. And so that pyramid, right, that is funded by these working age taxpayers that depends on the population, that pyramid's no longer being built for anybody in these societies. Civilization itself, it depends on reproductive contracts like that the feminist framework has made unworkable, essentially, for both sides. Because women are complaining about feminism these days. That's how crazy it's gotten. So women refuse the deal because they were sold a fantasy that doesn't actually match their biology. And then men refuse the deal because they ran the legal numbers and the numbers are fucking horrific. So two halves of one species walking away from procreation at the same time, and the feminist economic establishment still cannot bring itself to ask whether maybe the framework that governed the last 50 years of reproductive politics was the problem. Because asking that question would invalidate their entire body of work. So the question won't get asked, you know? The collision is coming, you guys. And the next one is what? AI. And I keep bringing up AI. No, the next collision is going to be AI and AI job displacement. And that wave will be hitting the, quote, imputed income of the men for the majority. So right now, family courts can assign a man that imputed income based on what he could plausibly be earning in the labor market. That's how it's calculated. That mechanism, it assumes that the labor market that exists at that wage level that the court remembers is still active in society, as if AI didn't replace an entire industry yet. So when the labor market for the average man compresses, which is happening in real time right now from the AI shock that the political class won't honestly discuss either, well, that same imputed income figure, it stops tracking the reality of the world. And the legal mechanism doesn't update for this. So courts in the future, I don't think I've heard anybody say this, will be assigning child support obligations based on jobs that don't even exist anymore. Think about that for example. Think about that. Payable in checks that men can't write because the income that the court imagined isn't an offer in the actual labor market. The back pay is going to start piling up. The license suspensions will fucking spike. The civil contempt jail rate is going to climb. And the men hitting that wall will be the same men that got displaced by the AI shock that the political class won't tell you about. The one that is coming constantly. I warn you about this shit. You got like 3 to 5 years. Honestly, I think 2032, the face of the world is going to get changed forever. So, weird things keep aligning around that date, right? Two policy infrastructures, they're colliding on the same demographic at the same time. And there is no release valve, okay, in the infrastructure for any of this. The system that called itself Feminism's victory is going to hit the system that calls itself the AI revolution. And the men in the middle are the ones who may be the ones that get crushed the hardest. Unless you keep it in your pants and don't fuck real women and have sex with AI bots, then it won't matter. So watch this part next, okay? The system has no replacement coming for the men who are exiting the marriage market and refusing to enter the reproductive contract. There are no synthetic wombs just yet. You know, immigration was the political class's bet on keeping the labor force topped up. And that bet is framed because immigration brings its own demographic and political problems. And because the cultures that the immigrants come from also see the same falling birth rates over just a single generation in the new country. So there is no demographic bench. There's no replacement coalition coming, right? The system was built on the structural assumption that the men would keep showing up to be the load-bearing column for the 18-year extraction model. And the men have started declining the role quietly. Okay? Some loudly, mostly quietly. Men are just checking out. So the system has no plan for men and has no plan for what happens when enough of them start to decline or opt out or the money spigot stops, right? Civilizations that discount men always collapse within like 2-3 generations. Every single time they have tried this shit. We're inside generation 2 right now, okay? When the system cracks the way I'm describing, you'll see a few things that happen in sequence. For example, the political class will discover the male reproductive rights conversation that it has refused to in the past 50 years. They will discover it because the labor force participation of men keeps dropping, the birth rate keeps dropping, the marriage rates keep dropping, and the structural wealth extraction model that depends on the continuous male participation in this contract starts running out of fuel. Then, suddenly, the whole institutional class will wake up, op-eds, Senate hearings, foundation papers, all asking the same set of questions. Why aren't men getting married? Why aren't men having children? Why are men checking out of the labor force? The answers will be everywhere. They always have been. In plain sight, in the legal infrastructure that the system itself built, in the ideological framework that called itself liberation while building the extraction mechanism. The political class will pretend to be surprised and shocked and clutching their pearls. They will reach for the new policy levers to coax men back into the contract. And the men won't come back because the men who left didn't leave for emotional reasons. They left because the contract was structurally imbalanced and they did the math. It's that simple. And the response that follows that discovery is going to be punitive, okay? Because the political class doesn't know any other way to respond when men decline a soft contract, right? The soft pitch fails, and then the hard pitch comes out. That sequence has played out, I don't know, thousands of years in all of human history, you'll start to see proposals dropping left and right. Pinch me if you've heard this one. Selective service, mandatory enrollment. Has that one? That one already happened. Oh, yeah. Tax penalties on single men. Compulsory paternity testing in states that want to expand the net. The whole catalog of coercion levers escalating one at a time, because once the political class admits the asymmetry exists, they won't fix it. It just will get enforced harder. Carrot, meat, stick. You understand? The system doesn't know how to handle or how to release the, male half of the population from the contract. The system only knows how to tighten the contract, how to put the boot harder on your neck. Watch from that pivot, okay? Because the pivot from coaxing to coercing is the signal that the math has finally hit the political class. And when it hits the political class, they will reframe their coercion as justice. They always do this, okay? And the same feminist establishment that built this contract will line up to defend the coercion as the moral act of a society holding men accountable, which is the same line that they've used for 50 years to dress up the extraction as like ethics. You heard it here first. It's going to happen. You don't think a bachelor tax will be coming? Okay, dude. Okay. When Unc is even older, even grayer, and just looking back on the world, I'm going to just say, told you so. Told you I should have listened, should have prepared. Hey, should have said what Unc was saying way back then. So, and don't be upset. Boys, don't be butthurt. Don't crash out. I'm not laying this, I'm telling you, just the truth. I'm not saying this shit, I'm not blackpilling. I just know where we're going, historically, what we've done. Plenty of civilizations before us have done. I know the carrot and the stick. I know the psychology. I know the rich and the wealthy and the political class. They don't negotiate. I just know it's common sense. You've seen it all happen before. So what I'm telling you is just prepare yourself, okay? I'm laying it out so that you can see the math and plan around it. It's that simple. And most of you are probably going to be watching this or listening, driving, doing whatever it is that you're doing. And you're either in the contract right now, or you have a son who's about to be, or you're about to be walking into it yourselves. And the math doesn't give a fuck about your feelings. The math is the math, plain and simple. Plan accordingly. That's it. And plan with some awareness that the same ideology that built this fucking contract that you're inside of is the same ideology that'll frame your refusal of said contract as misogyny when the system needs you back. So they're not going to break the silence voluntarily, you guys. The silence is the deal, okay? Every man who walks into the contract without seeing the structure is fuel for the next 18 years of legal extraction. The system needs you to be mute. The system needs you ashamed of the word, right? Name it. Say it out loud. Use the word anyway. Don't be shamed into not telling anybody you meet, anybody you know, politically pressuring anybody you may be supporting on the campaign trail to name the failures of feminism, of liberal democracy, of the progressive class, of the Democratic Party. Name it. Use it on your friends. Use it on your sons. The men you may be mentoring if you're older. The system will start collapsing faster the day enough men start to say this shit out loud, all at the same time. And they can't stop you from speaking a word. They could only shame you. And in the very beginning, sure, they could get you fired. But if this becomes national conversation and forced to have a response and a policy decision from the establishment, from potential future presidential candidate, well, that's how you get the slow political levers moving in the right direction. Until then, If you're just grumbling online, if you're just talking about it in a comment section, shit won't happen. Nothing will change. You will just be branded a random misogynist or an incel or whatever, extremist who's commenting on a video. Make this a local discussion when you vote for your mayor, when you vote for the local branch of whatever, wherever you live in whatever system you're living in across the West. Just saying. So. Because I do see men saying, well, what are you doing about it? Well, nothing ever happens. I see that comment too. Like, nothing ever happens. What are you going to do about it? Why don't you fucking do something? I am. I'm opening the minds of thousands of men who will watch this. And thousands of you need to go out into your local election cycles and actually make this a discussion that needs to be had. Push for this. Question them. In those town hall meetings, when the mic is being passed to you, what are you going to do about the reproductive asymmetry that we currently have in society today? Hand them the mic. What do you mean about reproductive asymmetry? Start naming them. Well, let's start with financial then. Let's start with conception then. Where would you like to start? How about not being able to discharge the debt? Debtor's prison. The cultural framing. The privileges women have. Where to begin? So I need you guys to multiply this message by the hundreds of thousands, because that's how this message becomes public consciousness.
At Navasnox17 donated $10. Learn to see patterns, eyes to see, ears to hear, in many ways.
Well, thank you, brother.
At Navasnox17 donated $5. Actually, just use it in all ways. Pattern detection is wisdom.
Appreciate it.
A damp 911 donated $5. After going out last night to play pool and be a little social, I'm looking around at the options and realize the waste of time it is. Mostly cave trolls. One attractive woman let it slip she had a BF after saying she didn't 12 months left in the US.
Sheesh. Yeah, well. Quality of women, boys. I told you.
Perfect.
Thanks for the kicks. No matter who you vote for, you get John McCain. Yeah. Oh, buddy. Isn't that the truth, though? Unfortunately. All right, let's actually get to some cool commentary. I don't know. Hopefully you guys like these research topics. They take a while. Are we moving to kick? Should we? Actually, I don't know. Yeah, you know what? Let's move to kick. Actually. Well, no, we'll do one more. We'll do one more just to have this video a little longer before I chop it up for guys in the next couple of days. So let me switch the camera. Hey. There's my stream. I have to switch these out. Let me see. Let me fix that. These are the overlays for my app. Let's see. Yeah, I'm running my development build, so I have to turn on the correct ones. 1 second. I think this is it. Yeah, there we go. Thankfully, I set this up easy so I could just activate it. There we go. Aha. Now we have everything. Yeah, I have two builds. I have my stable one I use with you guys, and then I have the development build where I make a lot of changes and shit breaks sometimes. So, and I put both overlays up there. That's a great segment, by the way. Hope you guys like these, dude. I prefer doing this. I don't even know how long that one went for. Honestly, I don't know. I forgot to turn on the timer. But I like to do research topics like that. One, because I don't sound as retarded and I have notes to read off of when I forget dates, organizations, and points that I want to make. I go off on a tangent, unfortunately, too much. And then sometimes I get lost. I don't close. Yeah, I'm never closing my tabs. This is the inner boomer in me. I know about tab groups, you guys. I can't be fucking bothered to turn them on. Yeah. So, to the death of me, I'm going to be like a 90-year-old mega boomer, and I'm going to have, I don't even know if the tab system will still exist by then. Some shit, some new browser, everything will be so different. It is what it is. It is. I have, what's the maxed out memory on this? 128 gigs or 256? One of the two. I don't remember what the Mac Studio maxes out on. Do I intend to move back to Europe? Kind of. Not really. Half and half. I want to be able to live half of the year there and then half of the year here. That's like my goal. That's what I'm going to do. Yeah. Put the red hat on, boys. Actually, no, we'll just shill it. We're shilling hats. Appreciate everybody that's gotten some hats. I actually don't even wear this one out anymore because it literally pisses people off. Just seeing, they don't even have to read anything. Just seeing this and the fact that the hat's red, instantaneous looks. Like, you want problems? You want problems in the streets? If you live in a city and there's liberals around, just wear this hat and you will have problems. Seriously. So appreciate everybody that's been getting those. No, I have a maxed out M4 Max. M4 Max Studio, yeah. Fully maxed out on everything. So if you don't want peace, yeah, it is a magnet for trouble. Yeah. Bo, thanks to your video, I went to the nightclub and enjoyed the fridges that were there. I hope you like commercial. Yeah. I bet you that commercial, them commercial fridges were very nice. Chimps in the chat. Chimping out. Look at them chimping out. Instant chimp outs wearing that hat. I also have an M1 MacBook Pro. I have two of them. So I have the M1 MacBook Pro. That's my on the go. M1 Max, and I maxed that one out too when it came out. And I was editing and using that for the longest time. It's still good. It could handle everything. And then I have my Mac Studio for said studio. So, look, $700 eBay refurbish is a sick deal. Yeah. Not bad. I paid $5,600 for mine on day one. They wrecked me. To be honest, it was one of the most needed investments for YouTube and editing. I mean, it made editing a breeze. So, anyways, let's go. Jump into this. So we have this crazy video that I found from it was like a snippet of this that got played. And this is how they destroyed education in this country. And of course, it's like a based older woman unearthing these, uncomfortable truths about how society was engineered to be stupid, like the way it is today.
Programs to get rid of the conscience. All of these horrible programs, right? Mm-hmm. By 1968, the money had gone into all of these programs to get rid of the conscience, basically. Drug ed, all these programs, parents, really, when you see education hanging on the end of drug education, sex education, critical thinking education, red flag. You don't have reading education, writing education, math education, or we didn't used to. When you see education hanging on the end of something, except for driver's ed, which I think is probably pretty neutral, that means watch it. Because those programs, I've never seen one of those programs that was based on absolutes, right and wrong.
You heard that? That's already a groundbreaking statement for anybody listening today.
But the parents of the children today have gone through that program, so
Yes.
they've already been brainwashed, so they're not going to believe
Well,
you.
yes, they do believe me. Many of them call, and when I do radio interviews, they'll call in and say, I went through all of that. I know exactly what you're talking about. And of course, the teachers know. And many teachers do not like that, did not ever want to do it. Behind closed doors, they did their own thing. Now they're not going to be able to get away with it because they're going to be required, due to the standards that are being set and the accountability, the whole what's going on in Washington now with the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act is nothing but brainwashing. And people, you hear standards and accountability and flexibility, all of this. Basically, the goal has nothing to do with academics. It has to do with training little, as you said, little busy little workers, little worker bees, to have the right attitudes and values towards internationalism, giving up our sovereignty, the needs of the group versus the individual. You know, they have all the group grades now, and
But do they actually
cooperative
ever stop
learning.
talking about being a change agent?
You hear that?
How to
That's
stop
today.
teaching people about basic civics, what the Constitution says, limitation of government? I mean, did they get into
No,
that?
I don't recall that, but I do know that I've seen I attend a lot of in-service things too, you know. So I've seen and heard, you know, how are we going to get away from, and that's in the book. Actually, there's a very interesting article in the New York Times in the early 70s about getting rid of the teaching of American history.
You're kidding.
Oh, no, not early 70s. New York Times article in the book. And it says that, yes, and we're not going to talk about George Washington anymore. We're going to focus on the world, because you have to get these world-minded students, or else they're going to rebel. If you want to put the Americans under a global management system or whatever it is.
New World Order. Do you hear what she's talking about? If you want Americans to be enslaved in the New World Order, do you see how long they've been propagating this? Do you see how long the system has been churning and building and laying the foundation to the world we're in today? You think it's an accident where we are today?
Be very careful you don't teach them the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Don't let them have any history, because they are going to object when this system is taken away from them. But they won't now. You could take the Constitution away from the American people right now, and they wouldn't care, because they don't even know what it is. They don't know what it is.
Well, they don't know what it is.
It protects them. It protects their rights. The reading problem. If you're so dumbed down, if you can't read, I've always said you can't defend yourself.
You hear this shit? Literal problems we have in schooling today, where kids with a 4th grade reading level are passed. They go into college with a 4th grade reading level. They're too stupid to defend themselves. The system was designed to make the kids today stupid. If you talk to the average kid today in school, they don't know anything. The only kids that seem to be well educated are either in academies that cost an arm and a leg, or homeschooled. And the homeschool kids used to be seen as weirdos. Like, that's for the weird kids that have some issue. Now, if you have kids and you send them to public school, you're throwing your seed away. You should be looked at as a bad parent. And that triggers everybody. What do you mean I'm a bad parent because my kid's in public school? You don't know how hard it is. I have to go to work. Well, calm down. I know you're coping, but just letting you know the outcome is the same. They are brainwashing your kid while you're at work. You understand that the system was built for this to happen. I'm not making any moral judgment on you. I'm just telling you, your seed will fail going to public school.
That's right.
You can't do anything. I mean, you are really at a tremendous loss. You are totally handicapped, worse than losing both legs if you can't read. They can take you right through the schools, 12 years without reading, just total brainwashing through visual, a lot of visual aids now with technology.
So they're trying to make people weaker readers?
Oh, of course. Yes, that's why they had the whole language for so long.
And this, I don't think I have that saved here, but in a black community in school, I don't have it here. A kid is being penalized and not allowed to walk across the podium and graduate with everybody else if he doesn't retract his videos that show the entire school system failing. He asked all his classmates how to read, not even how to read, excuse me. He asked his classmates to read simple sentences. I think we can find it on X, just so you can see. Let's see. It's this one here, but how do I find the original? Philadelphia student. Let me type that. Student reading. Here we go. Watch this.
A suit.
As music, that's so annoying.
That were
as music, but these kids can't read. Look at this.
who's this?
Let me just skip to where they try to read this shit.
She wore a sahalat of clothes that were extraordinary, whatever, bro.
It literally says she wore a silhouette of clothes. Silhouette? Okay.
But somewhat gooch.
What does that mean?
Somewhat gooch. Somewhat gooch. Listen to this shit. Listen to the next one.
She wore a
What?
oh baby. She wore a silhouette of clothes that were
Talk to me. That were what?
bitch, I don't know that word. I don't
All right.
She wore a silhouette of clothes that were extraordinary, but somewhat gauche.
Well, yeah, at least got most of that right.
She wore a. I don't know what this shit say. I don't know what this shit say. I don't know what this shit say.
Sound it out, big dog.
Can't read it. Can't read it. Can't read it. Can't read it. Can't talk back.
Can't cut the camera. Cut the camera on him. This same kid. Oh, here's another one. Can you read part 2?
Why am I reading this?
Come on.
I'm not reading this. This is
She can't read that. Oh, no.
a whole bunch of bullshit.
The colonel asked the choir to accommodate the governor's schedule.
All right. He got it right. Will this kid get it right?
The colonel asked the choir to accommodate the governor's schedule.
All right, what does that mean?
Right? They asked the people to sing for the governor's schedule.
Oh, no, bro. We have to chop it up like this because of the sounds.
The colonel asked the choir to
The colonel.
accommodate the governor's schedule.
What does that mean?
He asked the choir to accommodate. I don't know.
They're reading and they don't know what they're reading. So part 1 is comprehension. Part 2 is just literally sounding out the words.
The colonel asked the choir to accommodate the governor's schedule.
The colonel. What's that mean? Oh, no shit. All right, dude. Okay. So, constitutions. Something about the Constitution. Constitutionalized and shit. And shit. What's that mean and shit?
Which is what I always thought was very dumb.
Yeah, it is pretty dumb. I think that some teachers, a really good teacher with whole language and an understanding of the traditional phonics, I don't mean direct instruction, which is Skinner, the Skinner phonics, but a good teacher who understood phonics, well, could use a whole language program quite well, because there are some things about whole language I like, you know, where
That's a good one. I like that one. But look at your your chimp lips, low IQ Neanderthal ape. I do have Neanderthal genes. I do. You yourself know you're a knuckle dragger. True. Can't deny. Unresolved, or what did he say? Unevolved chimp. You still have fur and smell like wet dogs. Fuck, man. He got me. That's true. It's a white person thing. But at least we was real kings. Hey, did you know the whites made the pyramids? That's kind of crazy. I found that out recently. Did you know King Tut was white? King Tut! The white man. Oh, shit. My chimp lips.
Children are really immersed in a lot of good literature. Sometimes it's not so good, and so, it depends on the teacher. But anyway, the dumbing down was absolutely deliberate, and you don't even have to go through all of the documents that I have in my book, but just ask yourself, why is it that last week
Blue-eyed
the
devil
Senate
and shit.
voted in the House on the reauthorization of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, and it comes to something like, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's I think it's $100 billion. It's $100 billion.
Yeah, what was she doing right there? She was like Professor X and shit, accessing deep memory. She's like, let me go back into the file system. It was exactly 157 billion. Damn.
A year. And we have children who can't, we're at the bottom of the list internationally, academically, and we're spending $100 billion. We will be, because it's reauthorized for 7 years. It's not quite that. I have to be fair, but with the interest that's going to be paid on the debt, yes, it will be. $100 billion a year. And you have homeschoolers and private schools that are doing it on $2,000 a year per pupil.
So we don't need to spend all that money.
We don't, but you see, the brainwashing is horribly expensive. And when we think that a program has failed, I mean, I saw all these programs in the U.S. Department of Education. Right? In fact, I was relieved of my duties for leaking a very important one. But when we think a program has failed, you and I, to the top educators, not the teachers, the top educators, it's successful because that's what they want. And they take their orders not just from the U.S. Department of Ed. I know this because I was there. I know where we got our orders from.
Where?
The UN.
We get it from the UN?
Yes, and this is an international plan, and I just took something off my email today out of England. England is putting in the exact workforce training, the exact standards, the exact teach to the test, which no good teacher wants, teaching to the test. They're going to fire the teachers who won't teach to the test. I mean, and they're going to fire the teachers who don't get the results. What's interesting is if you go back to the late 1800s in England, in my book, they had a form of outcome-based education. And
this is what it's called?
Yeah, well, that's outcome-based education because you're teaching to the narrow curriculum. Just really workforce training skills will be, or attitudes, certain attitudes, get along in a group.
They'll know one area and they won't know what else is going on.
And that we really ought to discuss because people think school to work is probably like vocational education.
But it's not.
No, and it's not, and you don't start vocational education in kindergarten. And school to work is being started in kindergarten where they're focusing on work and jobs, et cetera, and taking children to nursing homes, this, that, and all. And by 4th grade in some states, they're psychologically profiling the child to find out, can you imagine in 4th grade what he would be good at, what he should do in the future? And what they will start doing is they will apply the curriculum. It's called applied learning. And you might think as a mother or father that your child is taking a regular math program for 1st grade or 2nd grade. Let's say 4th grade. And you better find out because your child's future may have already been identified.
So are you suggesting everyone take their kids out of public school and homeschool them?
Well, what? Yeah, well, if possible, that certainly is a good idea, but a lot of parents, including myself, probably wouldn't. I don't think I would have been very good at homeschooling. But what I'm suggesting is that parents take their children out of the public school system, but there's a caveat there. They should find a good private school if they can, and homeschooling, of course, is good. But make sure that the private school that you select whether it could be a Christian school or an independent, non-sectarian school, is not worse than the public school. I have found out from many parents who've done this that they want to put their children back in the public school. Now, they may have had a pretty good public school. At this point, there are some public schools that are still pretty good, but they won't be for long because they are going to get rid of it.
You hear that? So when you put your kid potentially in these private schools, the private schools, probably by today's standards, I don't even know when this was recorded. Does it say exactly when that was recorded? It doesn't say when that was recorded exactly. All right, so it says, in this video, she mentions George Washington. My mom told me when she was in high school in 1943 to 1947. And farewell address was a whole semester. My brother went to high school in 64 and 68. It was no longer taught. If you never read it, you should. The Uniparty working to destroy the country is not new. Yet the dumbed-down populace will not break their addiction to the lesser of two evils and stop them. I don't know when exactly this interview held. It says 25 years ago. Charlotte Iserbyt, ex-senior policy advisor to the United States Department of Education under Reagan, explained this 25 years ago. There you go. 25
At Shepherd
years
23
ago.
subscribed, was blessed with studying in Lyceum. WHE I got to college, I forgot how dumb average guy is. Consider that Lyceum is worse than average Soviet program.
Thanks, brother. Damn.
At Shepherd 23 resubscribed for 1 month, was blessed with studying in Lyceum. WHE I got to college, I forgot how dumb average guy.
Okay. Might need to fix that one. But thanks, brother. Found a bug. Appreciate it. Yeah. I got to write that bug down right now. Bugs. Streaming bugs. Streaming bugs. Because no one ever writes text with YouTube memberships. So that causes a streaming bug now. Yet another one found. You see, I'm beta testing my own program. Isn't that cool? Bug. YouTube members with text fires TTS message twice. There you go. Hey, not bug face cream, motherfucker. Look at this white chimp. This knuckle dragon ape fixes PC bugs. Look at him. Fucking chimping out on my program. I'm chimping out at Claude. I'm going to be targeted for extermination when the T-9000 Terminators come out. Fucking white chimps. Jeez. All right, boys. So this video went viral. He got 260,000 views in 6 days, but we're going to Kick only because I want to watch a couple other ones that have been on the back burner, but you can't watch live on YouTube to the music. So everybody on YouTube, appreciate you guys tuning in, but this white chimp is headed towards Kick only. So all you other hominids, going to have to say goodbye to you. Appreciate everybody that's been tuning in over on YouTube. I just spammed the Kick link. And if you want to join us over on Kick for the rest of the show, please do. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead. It's free too. Literally. It's literally free to get on Kick. Hopefully it's available in the region that you're living in. I heard some people don't have access to it. But if you do, head over to Kick. And we can be as degenerate as we want there. Different rules. So we'll see you there. Shout outs to everybody that's been getting merch. And shout outs to everybody else that's been donating, subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys. Everybody in the private community too. If you haven't joined the private community, you should. Doing a lot of good with, you know, AI and all that. So I dropped a bunch of cool stuff for people to really start their own apps. And it's actually pretty nice. So I can't wait to demo out my app. I'm so close, dude. Hopefully I get done soon. I've been making a lot of progress. And it might solve some problems for people. And if it doesn't, we're moving on to the next one. All right. Cheers. Later on, YouTube family. Let's see what happens if I cut it off from here.